This Interact educational resource describes how hanging valleys are formed through a long period of glacial history. It is an educational resource produced by Tom State University for Interact, Wicked Weather Watch, University Arctic and Edu Arctic. During the last ice age, which ended about 10,000 years ago, much of the north was covered in ice sheets, such as that can be seen in the distance. These ice sheets had outlets in glaciers that flowed under the force of gravity down through the mountain valleys, many into the sea. In this case, we are stood above the glacier looking into the ice sheet which accumulates snow, and behind us the mouth of the glacier reaches much further behind us. It's snowing to denote that this is a cold period, but of course it snows every year in the north. As well as the accumulation of ice and snow in the glacier and the ice sheet in the valleys, we have small ice caps and areas of snow on the mountain tops. Some mountain tops, however, are clear of snow and ice, and these are called nunataks. And these nunataks were important habitats in previous cold periods for the survival of plants. During a warm period, such as 10,000 years ago or now, the snow accumulation decreases and the glacier and ice sheet start to lose volume, and the glacier starts to retreat along the valley from behind us until it's in front of us and we can see the snout of the glacier retreating into the background. At the same time, the mountain glacier on the right-hand side starts to lose volume and disconnects with the glacier in the valley below. At the tops of the mountains, frost works on rocks to shatter them, producing small materials, and these are washed down the mountain slopes in gullies in the rocks and accumulate at the foot of the mountain slopes as alluvial fans. During the past 10,000 years, there have been many climate fluctuations with warm and cold periods. Here we see a cold period denoted by snow, although remember that the snow falls every year. During these cold periods, the ice sheets accumulate more snow and ice, and the glaciers flow again towards us and down the valleys. And the connection between the hanging glacier on the right, at the top of the mountain, and the glacier at the bottom is established again. In a renewed period of warming, the glacier, of course, starts to retreat again, as we saw earlier on. This time you can see a moraine being left behind as the glacier retreats. This moraine marks the point at which the glacier terminated following the last advance. These moraines are formed when materials, rocks sliding down the mountains, fall on the glacier, and also from materials being pushed from the valley floor in front of the glacier. And of course they're most visible when the glacier retreats and leaves them behind. During the warming process, the hanging glacier or the mountain glacier has been disconnected from the glacier in the valley, and now there is a hanging valley with a small lake in it and a waterfall down to the valley floor below. As the climate continues to warm, the snow and ice disappear, leaving the hanging valley with its lake and waterfall to the valley floor below. Also, vegetation starts to move in. Initially, the grasses and herbs are established, but later trees become established also. And of course, the land which has been without snow and ice for the longest have the most advanced vegetation of the forest. The sequence you have seen represents what has happened since the last ice age in an area, for example, like Scotland or the English Lake District or the Swedish subarctic. But of course, we have only shown one advance and two retreats. In practice, there may have been very many in the 10,000 years that have been depicted in just a few moments. The finishing frame is what we see today, but of course, the sequence we've shown could depict what happens now and from now onwards to the high Arctic area, which is now glaciated, much as the north of Britain would have been 10,000 years ago. So we have provided two scenarios. One, an animation of what we have seen over the past 10,000 years for areas which now look like this frame you are looking at, but also areas of the high Arctic which are now covered in ice and snow, which could, in some hundreds of years, look like the frame we're looking at now.
This has been an Interact educational resource. The animation was developed by Vyacheslav Rudchenko of Tomsk State University, and it was designed by Professor Terry Callaghan on behalf of Interact, the University of Arctic, Wicked Weather Watch and EduArctic. It had valuable input from Professor Perm Halmond of Stockholm University and Dr. Kristi Jonasson of Uppsala University.